Campfire Stories, Part 1. Cheryl and Sheila. Alright, Jack, what you got for us? Me? Yeah, you. We all get a turn. Now it's yours. Well, come on, it can't be that hard. Just make something up. Or just tell something you heard somewhere. Okay. Oh, I know. Have you heard about the story of Cheryl and Sheila? Oh, you mean those twins? Yeah, them. They had a pretty crazy one. They sure did. I think that's a good story for you to start with. Okay then, here goes nothing. Cheryl and Sheila were two twins who grew up very close. They were inseparable, but they didn't have a very good home life as kids. And one night they were left outside in the cold until the morning. And from that day on, no matter what they did, they were always freezing. It was as if the cold from that night never left them. No matter how warmly they dressed, no matter how hot it was outside, they always felt cold. They always had cold hands, and their skin was a permanent pale shade of purple. Over the years, they learned to live with it and just tried their best to be comfortable and wear as many layers as they could, but it was never enough. For the first time in their lives, Cheryl and Sheila had exact opposite reactions to the same thing. Cheryl became obsessed with trying anything and everything to get warmer, where Sheila, for unknowable reasons, became obsessed with embracing the cold. While Cheryl was sweating in a sauna, Sheila would be taking ice baths and having ice drinks. Soon enough, it started to drive a wedge between them, and it became so bad that they cut contact with each other. Cheryl's antics became more and more dangerous, to the point where she would frequently end up with burns on her skin. She still insisted that she was cold. For Sheila, life went on, and she was happy. She lived a mostly normal life. She had convinced herself that the cold was not only bearable, but even enjoyable. She seemed to have found peace in her life. One day, Cheryl just snapped entirely. She kept screaming and screaming about how she could feel the cold all the way inside her bones, how it ached constantly and burned. And in a last, desperate attempt to get rid of the cold, she lit herself on fire. Sheila hadn't known of her sister's passing. That night, for the first time in years, she was overcome with the cold. Suddenly it bothered her again in a way that it hadn't in a long, long time. She dressed in warm pajamas, climbed beneath her old blankets, and tried her best to shake the cold. They were both found in the morning, Cheryl by her landlord and Sheila by her boyfriend. They had died at the exact same time. Autopsy revealed that Sheila passed from hypothermia, and the paramedics handling Cheryl's body described it as being so cold that touching it was physically painful. They said that it was like trying to touch dry ice. Neither could be explained. How could Sheila have been so cold on a summer night, even under her blankets? How could Cheryl's body be so painfully cold, especially after she had burned to death? No one knew the answer, but it seems as if, even in death, they are both still freezing cold. A momentary silence around the campfire, and then, "That's not at all what I heard." "Oh? Yeah, the story I was told is completely different." "Then why don't you go next, Mark?" "Fine, I will. Here's what really happened to Cheryl and Sheila." Cheryl and Sheila were twins, and they were inseparable, but they weren't left out in the cold. They were just normal kids with a normal life. They did everything together. Even as adults, they couldn't be separated. It was almost as if they were literally the same person. They hated being apart, to the point where it caused trouble between Sheila and her boyfriend. He felt that it was unhealthy how codependent they were, as if they were constantly glued to each other. They lived together, worked together, did everything together. He felt like they needed to be separated, that Cheryl was like an extra limb, an unnecessary appendage that needed to be cut off, like an extra arm or leg that, ironically, made it harder to do things. But Sheila and Cheryl refused to be torn apart. They loved each other, and both felt strangely as though it was impossible for just one of them to exist, as though when they were apart, they ceased to exist entirely and were overcome by an all-consuming desire to be reunited. Sheila and her boyfriend argued about how she became like a different person whenever they finally had a chance to be alone. She would go into a sort of trance and be unaware of what was happening around her. Even so, he stayed with her. He really believed that if he could fix the problem, they could be happy. One day, in one of the rare instances where they were apart for a short while, Cheryl didn't come back. She had just gone to the store, and Sheila's boyfriend arrived at their apartment to see her completely in a daze, more so than usual. They waited together for hours, but she didn't show. Her boyfriend tried calling dozens of times, but it went straight to voicemail. In the end, Sheila was so distraught that she became nauseous. That night, she was shaking and shivering and purple all over, and her nausea continued into the early morning hours. The following morning, she woke up ravenous and still cold, but it seemed that it didn't matter how hungry she was. She still kept being sick randomly throughout the day. It carried on for days, and her boyfriend started to suspect that she was making herself sick on purpose. But when he went to check, he saw that she had been vomiting up water and nothing else, just filthy water. He eventually took her to the hospital. The doctor asked to keep her for a day or two until she stopped being sick. They ran some tests, and he eventually went home after visiting hours were over. That night, he woke up to a knocking on the door. He opened it and saw Sheila, cold and purple and dripping wet. He quickly let her in and gave her a towel to dry off, but he felt very confused. It wasn't raining outside, and he couldn't understand why the hospital would let her go so late at night. She looked at him in a dazed-out way, and he stared at her intently. He wanted to say something to make her feel better, but he didn't know what he could say. Then he noticed it wasn't Sheila. It was Cheryl. She had come back. She seemed to possess an unnatural strength, and she dragged him screaming into the dark of the night. By the time she had reached her intended location, it was already morning, and the sun was starting to rise. Cheryl dragged him all the way to a huge river and stared into his eyes as she tossed him into the water. On his way down, he saw that Sheila had appeared by her side, and then it all came together in his mind. In a fit of jealous rage, he had tried to drown Cheryl. For the past few days, Sheila had been vomiting up all the dirty river water and been cold and hungry like Cheryl. When he hit the water, he saw nothing but their silhouettes staring down at him. After he had vanished, the two girls walked back to their apartment and never looked back. After all, the extra unnecessary arm had been cut off from their lives. They could go on like before and be happy. And they were. The end. After all but half a minute of deliberation, Jack asks, "So why didn't they go to the police to report Cheryl missing?" Well, think about it. Sheila was completely dazed out and her boyfriend wouldn't have wanted her to be found. What I really want to know is whose turn is it next? Zeke, I think it's you. Alright, I've been waiting for this one.